Hello and welcome to the second leg of our World Ekiden Championships. This is the women's race. You saw the men's race yesterday on Screen Sport, won by Kenya. Well, big problems for Kenya today. Only 5 women have turned up, and that leaves just a field of 8 teams. Could barely be considered a successful lineup for a first World Championship. This race was run on Saturday afternoon, 3:45 start. 19 degrees Celsius, humidity 63%. Now, you would have thought that a first World Championship, with expenses paid by the International Athletic Federation, would have enticed rather more than 8 international teams to the start point. We're in Funchal, the capital of Madeira, 500 kilometres off the northwest coast of Africa. There are the first leg runners. With the Kenyans not competing, it's rather felt that the Romanian team is probably the strongest, with the British and Portuguese looking good for medal places. In fact, apropos the Kenyans, for a while it was considered that the team manager might run the spare leg, Ruth Waitera, who is a former athlete herself. But after brief consideration, the Kenyans decided that they didn't want to diminish the importance of a World Championship by having their team manager run, and they probably would have won anyway. Now, what happened was that Helen Kimayo, who's based in nearby Spain, Kimayo, the national cross-country champion, simply didn't turn up. So that's the reason why the Kenyan women are not in a position to emulate their men, whom we saw yesterday easily win the first IAAF Ekiden World Championship men's relay. They won by 1.5 minutes, the Kenyan men. We're looking at the first 5-kilometre leg of the Women's World Championship Ekiden. In the lead there is Fernanda Marques of Portugal. The tall woman in the red and yellow is Begoña Jerez of Spain. And in the middle is the Brazilian Ana Claudia de Souza. Rather more overcast the afternoon before the men's race, which we saw was beautiful weather, but round about the same temperature nonetheless. Some other women in there to look for: Lisa York of the United Kingdom, Margareta Floriagile of Romania, Berit Worm of Denmark, Lisa Stone of the USA, and Yelena Kopitova of the United team. That's formerly the Soviet Union. Not really a patch on the team that set the world's fastest ever time for this marathon relay a year ago in Barcelona. That was the Soviet squad. The Soviets have really disseminated across Western Europe, both men and women road runners, marathon runners, living and training in Western Europe, picking up the sort of money that they could only have dreamed about up till a couple of years ago. I mean, they did win it back in those days, but most of it was kept by the Soviet Federation. We're into the final stages of the first kilometre of the first leg of 5 kilometres in the first Women's World Championship Ekiden relay. Only 8 teams. I mean, if the Kenyans were thinking they were going to diminish the importance of the first World Championship, the fact that only 8 teams have turned up has done exactly that. There were only 15 men's teams that we saw yesterday. Up in the lead there is the Portuguese runner Fernanda Marques. She is heading Lisa York of the United Kingdom and Begoña Jerez of Spain. The Portuguese finished second in the men's race yesterday. They should do pretty well here today. And certainly with only 8 teams contesting, that's not really such a formidable task for a country with a tremendous tradition of road running, Portugal that is. We've got some excellent runners to come: Aurora Cunha, Conceição Ferreira and Fernando Ribeiro. So the Portuguese should be well placed. And Marques asking which way to turn. Right, it was said. Now, this is a real switchback course. The same course that we saw yesterday used for the men's relay. It's a lot of toing and froing, because 42.195 kilometres The marathon distance, you probably couldn't get a single lap around Funchal at that distance, so there's a lot of hairpin bends, a lot of turns. Going round one of those hairpin bends at the moment, right of screen, we're in Portugal 1, where's Fernanda Marques, followed closely by Lisa York. Marques of Portugal, York of the United Kingdom. Well into the second kilometre now. Now we're picking up at the final stages of this first leg. That's Lisa York of the United Kingdom in the lead. She was the national cross-country champion this year, her best year so far. She's run 16 minutes and 9 seconds for a 5-kilometre race, which she won in Sheffield a few weeks ago in the United Kingdom. She's planning to go for the 1,500 metres in the Olympic Games. That's to say, if she gets selected, and she's got to run 1,500 metres in the British trials. In fact, later on this week in Norway, she's running her first 1,500 metres track race of the season. So in the lead, Lisa York from the United Kingdom, closely followed by Fernanda Marques. And there in the background, you can see the Spaniard Begoña Jerez, followed by Margareta Floreaguile, who looks to be in a bit of trouble, the Romanian 800 metres runner, suffering from a bit of a stomach upset by the looks of it. And Lisa York is getting away from Fernanda Marques. York for the Great Britain and Northern Ireland team, getting towards the end of this first 5-kilometre leg in the World Ekiden Relay Championships. The first, the third and the fifth stages of this 6-stage relay will be over 5 kilometres. The second and the fourth stages will be 10 kilometres, and the sixth and final stage, making up the marathon distance, will be 7.195 kilometres. A distant view along one of the fronts in Funchal of Lisa York of the United Kingdom, leading the first stage of the Ekiden World Relay Championships. Ekiden is a Japanese word, incidentally. It's a word that goes back some considerable time. It used to mean staging post. That's to say where horses were changed in stagecoach relays for mail deliveries, etc. First Ekiden relay was run in 1917 in Japan. There's been a proliferation of these relays across the world in the last half a dozen years. Now you can see on the right wrist of York there's a yellow wristband which serves as the baton. Now in the Ekiden, the classic Ekiden relays in Japan, there's a sash carried over the shoulder around the waist called a tsuki. It's rather thought that might hamper the runners in the changeovers, so they've got this wristband. And York has got well away now from Fernanda Marques at the end of this first leg. Lisa York of the United Kingdom having her best season so far. Young woman in her early 20s. She's the national cross-country champion of England. She's going to go for the 1,500 metres at the British Olympic trials later this summer. And here she comes, taking off that wristband to pass over to Marion Sutton, the second stage runner for Great Britain. There's the changeover. 16 minutes and 3 seconds for Lisa York. So she's knocked half a dozen seconds off her best 5 kilometres time. Sutton goes away for Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the lead team. You've just missed the changeover there from Fernanda Marques to Aurora Cunha, one of the best known of the Portuguese international athletes. Second only to Rosa Mota in the annals of women's distance running in Portugal. That's the Spanish takeover from Begoña Jerez to Carmen Brunet on the second 10 kilometres leg. And there are the rest of the 10k runners. Look for Dorte Rasmussen of Denmark. There are the Brazilians taking over. That's Silvana Pereira, you can see. And they're pursuing Joy Smith. In fact, Pereira is pursuing Joy Smith of the United States. Marion Sutton Good marathon runner. She finished 5th in the recent London Marathon, which we saw on Screen Sport. And there's the first leg results. Lisa York, 16:03, Marquez, 16:15. Excellent run for York. That's not going to be beaten today, and that's going to be the fastest 5-kilometre leg of the day. Now, as we move into the latter stages of this 10-kilometre second leg, there's been quite a change at the front. Cunha very quickly passed Marion Sutton, and she's taken the lead, but Dorte Rasmussen of Denmark has put in an absolutely storming 10k leg. She's a very good 10 kilometres runner, just over 32 minutes already this year. She's a very accomplished marathon runner. She was 2nd in Houston last year, 91, 4th in London in 89, 5th in New York in 1990, 13th in Los Angeles Olympics 84, and she's brought Denmark up from 7th to 2nd. We're looking at Cunha there briefly. I was talking about Dorte Rasmussen. There she is. She's coming around the hairpin now. She's caught about 40 seconds already back on Aurora Cunha, who is one of the great road runners in the world. Cunha's won the Paris, Tokyo marathons in 1988. She won Chicago in 1990. Here she is. She's broken over 40 distance running records in Portugal. 2nd only in the annals of Portuguese cross-country and road running, distance running, in the women's section to Rosa Motta. She won the World 10-kilometre inaugural championship back in 1984. It was moved up to a 15 kilometres in the next year, 85. She won that, and she won again in 1986. Finished 3rd in 1989, Cunha. We're looking at Rasmussen here, running an absolutely tremendous leg. Now, Rasmussen, whether she goes for the 10 kilometres in Barcelona or the marathon, should be a great danger to some of the leading women, because she's taking almost a minute out of Aurora Cunha over 10 kilometres, which is probably one of the most difficult things in the world to do. Cunha probably could only be beaten over this distance with any great certainty by the likes of Ilana Meyer of South Africa, Liz McColgan of Great Britain, Lynn Jennings of the United States, Rosa Motta, of course, her Portuguese colleague. But here, Dorte Rasmussen, we're looking at right now, of Denmark, has taken almost a minute out of Aurora Cunha on this second leg. Rasmussen has moved the Danes up from 7th to 2nd. The UK has dropped back to 3rd or even 4th at this stage. Now, there were big problems for the Romanians on that first leg, incidentally, the favourites when the Kenyans dropped out or didn't field a team. Margareta Florea-Guile, in fact, did have a stomach upset, and she finished 2 minutes behind on that leg. But we're at the end of the second leg now. Aurora Cunha of Portugal is handing the host nation over a slight lead, about, well, it's not going to be much more than 2 or 3 seconds over the Danes, because Dorte Rasmussen of Denmark has put in an absolutely storming leg. Brought the Danes up from 7th to 2nd. Cunha took the Portuguese past Marion Sutton of the United Kingdom after only about a kilometre of this 10-kilometre leg. And Cunha is just about going to hold up and hand over to this woman, Felicidade Sena, who is going to run the 5-kilometre leg, the 3rd stage for Portugal. Rasmussen is going to hand over to Anita Paulshøj of Denmark. There go the Portuguese in the background. There go the Danes. We're into the 3rd stage of the first Women's World Ekiden Relay Championships. It's a 6-stage race. There are some of the 3rd leg runners. There's quite a few casualties in this race. Kenyans didn't turn up. Romanians blew out on the first leg, although they're still in the race. Now, there's more to come. Please stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Funchal in Madeira, which is the venue for the first Road Relay Championships. You saw some of the men that competed. We saw that race yesterday. Second leg results, tremendous leg from Dorte Rasmussen of Denmark, a minute ahead of Aurora Cunha. Yet the Portuguese still maintain a slight lead after 15 of the 42.195 kilometres. USA moved into third place. Now a few problems. You see at the bottom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland don't have a time, and that's because Marion Sutton had to stop running 1 kilometre from the end of her leg as we watch the Dane on the third leg, Anita Paulshoy. So with Britain failing to finish that second leg, it meant that their individual runners could continue, but they had to wait until 2 minutes after the final team finished. So the British are a couple of minutes adrift, and they're just running for individual medals. That's to say they could still run the fastest times on their particular stage and get an individual medal for that. We're on the third stage, however. Anita Paulshoy, and that in fact is Felicidade Senna of Portugal in the lead. She was given the lead by Aurora Cunha, who ran the second 10 kilometres leg. Cunha put in quite a good leg, but nothing like the performance of the Dane Dorte Rasmussen, who took Denmark through from 7th into 2nd place. You're looking at Felicidade Senna of Portugal on the third of the 6-leg relay. Only 7 teams now competing in this World Championships. The Kenyans couldn't field a full team. Their men went on to win the following day by a minute and a half. We saw that yesterday on Screen Sport. And there are some of the pursuing runners just going down on the other side of the road. In fact, we saw Cristina Nogue of Spain chasing with Laurie Hevig of the United States. We're just over the first hour of a race that is going to take round about 2 hours 18, 2 hours 20. This is Felicidade Senna of Portugal, the host nation in effect. Race being run in Madeira, the holiday island off the northwest coast of Africa. There's the unified team going down the road there. That's Svetlana Vasilyeva. But with so many former Soviet athletes now living in Western Europe, the unified team really can't field a very good lineup at all. They're looking at Anita Paulshoy of Denmark. She's running the third leg. It's a 5-kilometre leg, but she's outside 17 minutes. We saw Lisa York on the first stage for the United Kingdom come home in 16:03. This is Felicidade Senna of Portugal. She's running a pretty good time, Senna. She's going to run under 16.5 minutes. And she's going to be up there among the fastest of the day. She's not going to be as fast as Fernanda Marques, who ran for Portugal on the first leg, did 16:15. So leading 5-kilometre times at the moment, Lisa York from the UK, 16:03, Fernanda Marques, 16:15. And Felicidade Senna bringing the Portuguese home in first place at the end of the third stage. We're going to be moving from this 5-kilometre stage onto another 10-kilometre stage, which is to be run by this tiny but very accomplished 10-kilometre runner, Conceição Ferreira. 20-kilometre point. Felicidade Senna hands over to Conceição Ferreira, and Ferreira goes away. And Portugal at this point have a lead of some 40 seconds, thereabouts. Now there are some of the fourth leg runners. No Kenyans, remember. They only turned up with 5 women, decided not to run their team manager, although they probably could have won. Now stay with us for the second half of the first Ekiden World Relay Championships. And there's Marion Sutton, the British runner who pulled a hamstring so severely towards the end of the second stage of this Women's World Relay Championships that she had to drop out, and the British team are continuing as individuals. There's the third leg relay results. Senior Portugal 16:28, kept Portugal well in the lead. They are over almost a minute, in fact, over Denmark, Spain third, USA fourth. And there is Conceição Ferreira of Portugal, an extremely accomplished 10 kilometres runner. She's well into her stage and running so fast she really had to decelerate around that hairpin bend. She finished 11th in the Tokyo World Championships last summer in the 10,000 metres. She's run 33 minutes exactly for the distance, and she's third on the Portuguese all-time list at that distance, behind inevitably Rosa Mota and Araura Cunha, whom we saw lead Portugal home on the second leg, which was also 10 kilometres. Running very well indeed, Conceição Ferreira. We saw her last summer a couple of times, running and winning in some French meets. This is the fourth stage of the six-stage World Ekiden Relay Championships being held in Funchal in Madeira. And Ferreira is really pushing it on at the front there. She's in the last kilometre. And he's fairly bouncing along. Now the Danes are still holding on to second place. They came through from seventh, remember, after the first leg. Tremendous run by Dorte Rasmussen on the second leg, brought them up to second. And on this leg they've got Aina Maria Sly. This, however, is Conceição Ferreira of Portugal. And she's putting up a pretty good time. She's going to be close to 33 minutes. And in fact, she's going to be running even faster than Dorte Rasmussen, who ran that tremendous second stage for Denmark. Rasmussen ran 33 minutes and 8 seconds on that leg, but Ferreira's running even faster and has taken Portugal into an enormous lead. Portuguese men we saw yesterday finished second to the Kenyans. Now, the Kenyan women couldn't field a team here today, and Portugal has gone into a lead which, barring the sort of accidents which we saw happen to the British team when Marion Sutton's Achilles tendon seized up and she was carted off on a stretcher at the end of the second leg. Now, barring accidents like that, the Portuguese are going to run away with this race. That's Conceição Ferreira, and she's running exactly 33 minutes. Absolutely sensational run. All by herself, remember, at the front of this race. In the background you can see the Romanian runner. The Romanians are actually pulling up from that disastrous start that they had when Guillet had to stop with a stomach upset. So Conceição Ferreira hands over to Fatima Neves, who's probably one of the weak links in this relay chain, although she's gone off fairly well there. This is a 5 kilometres leg. Neves is only a 9 minutes and 21 seconds 3 kilometre runner, and that is barely better than good club standard in most Western European countries. Only 7 teams now competing. The British are still in there, and in fact Laura Adam is going to provide a bit of a surprise on this leg for the UK. But for the time being, we're looking at Fatima Neves of Portugal. Portugal has a lead of round about 4 minutes in this first World Relay Championships. There are some of the fifth leg runners. That's Fatima Neves of Portugal. Well in the lead and well on the way to victory, the Portuguese, to go with their men's second place, which we saw yesterday behind the Kenyans. Now please stay with us for the culmination of this first Ekiden World Championships. Welcome back to Funchal in Madeira for the final stages of the first Women's World Equidens Relay Championships. There's the fourth leg results rather. Conceição Ferreira of Portugal, 33 minutes, which is the fastest time of the day for the 10-kilometre stage. After 30 kilometres, a lead of some 3.5 minutes for the Portuguese, and they've just got a 5-kilometre stage and a 7.195-kilometre stage. That's Fatima Neves. She's running the 5-kilometre penultimate stage. She's not a terribly fast runner, probably the weak link in the Portuguese team, which nonetheless has 2 or 3 top internationals, world-ranked runners, and that's been good enough to take them well away from what is essentially a depleted field. Only 8 teams started. There's only 7 full teams running at the moment. The Portuguese some 3.5 minutes in front of the Danes. Also well up the Spaniards, and the Romanians have come back from their disastrous start when Margareta Florea Ghile dropped right back with a stomach upset and came in 2 minutes after the penultimate runner at the end of the first leg. And with some quite decent runs, they're going to be moving up stage by stage up towards the first 3 places, but nowhere near the top place that the Romanians were expected to get when it was realised that the Kenyans weren't going to field a full team. That's Fatima Neves of Portugal. Only a 9 minutes and 21 seconds, 3,000 metres runner. Nevertheless, she was handed such a large lead, close to 4 minutes, that she should be able to hang on with relative ease and hold off the Danes and the Spaniards, currently in 2nd and 3rd places. An extremely disappointing entry for this first World Championships. We saw 15 men's teams competing yesterday, only 8 women's teams today, of which 1 has already had to drop out of the team race. There's the 4th stage results again. Tremendous run for Ferreira, 1.5 minutes in front of Gheorghe State of Romania. State is bringing the Romanians back up towards the lead places. In fact, Galushka also for the unified team ran a pretty good leg there, but way behind Conceição Ferreira. 33 minutes is the fastest 10 kilometres stage of the day. The weather quite overcast. This was last Saturday afternoon. The men's race, which was run on Sunday morning in much brighter weather. Nonetheless, the temperatures are round about the same, 19 degrees Celsius. And you're seeing the Dane Nina Christiansen chasing Fatima Neves, but about 3 minutes behind, about 3.5 minutes behind Christiansen. This is the 5th stage of the 6-stage relay. This is a 5 kilometres leg, as was the 1st and the 3rd. The 2nd and the 4th were 10 kilometres. There's Fatima Neves. Well over 3 minutes ahead of the Danes still, the Portuguese, and well on their way to victory. Barring the sort of accident that happened to Marion Sutton of the United Kingdom, had to stop running towards the end of the 2nd leg. It was a 10-kilometre stage. She ran 9 kilometres. Hamstring muscle seized up, whether it is through dehydration or simply it was a muscular problem. And there is the Romanian squad. That's Elena Fidatov, another world-class runner for the Romanians. That's why it was reckoned that they were going to do well. They got Iulia Bestiu-Ionescu, they've got Iulia Negura to come, the women's road race champion, but they're so far behind at the moment. They're some 5 minutes adrift of the Portuguese. There's the unified team. That's Anastasia Dankinova. We're back with the Portuguese leader, Fátima Neves. Some huge gaps now in this race. About 3.5 minutes between first and second. Not all that much actually between second and third. The Spaniards appear to be catching the Danes, and the Romanians are also up there, and the US and the unified team are getting close, but the biggest gap in fact is between first place and second place. Portuguese men finished second to the Kenyans, albeit a minute and a half adrift, and here are the Portuguese women in the absence of the Kenyans, and with the accidents that have happened to both the Romanians and the British, the Portuguese are running away with the women's race. They would have run well anyway. A very good team with people like Cunha and Ferreira in, and with Fernando Rivera to come. Barring accidents, as I said, the Portuguese should win this first IAAF World Ekiden Championships very, very easily indeed. Round that hairpin bend again for the last time. Fátima Neves is on her way to handing over to Fernando Ribeiro. 19 degrees Celsius. Weather conditions, it's now 5:45. This was Saturday evening. Much more somber day than Sunday was going to be when the men ran late morning. But then again, the midday temperature didn't get any higher than 20 degrees. I talked about the unified team earlier. I mean, when it was the Soviet Union, they had a really excellent array of runners, but a lot of road runners and marathon runners have gone to live in Western Europe, and the unified team now bears no resemblance whatsoever to the former Soviet team. It was a Soviet squad that ran 2 hours, 13 minutes and 59 seconds, which is the Ekiden women's world best. Now this race is going to be won some 6 minutes adrift of that time. Nonetheless, the Portuguese are winning it easily at the moment. Now there's the Spaniard, Rocío Rios. She's in third place at the moment, but he's running quite a decent leg here. She's going to be well under 17 minutes. We're looking at Fátima Neves, who's going to be right on 17 minutes. So Rocío Rios of Spain, whom we saw briefly there a few seconds ago, is going to be running one of the fastest times of this stage. But the fastest overall, unbelievably, is going to be run by Laura Adam of the United Kingdom, who had to start off 2 minutes adrift of the final team because the British haven't got a full team now. So on this stage, Laura Adam of the United Kingdom is running 16 minutes and 31 seconds. About half a minute faster than this woman, Fátima Neves. But the British team is, of course, out of the reckoning. But the individuals allowed to carry on, and in fact Laura Adam is going to win the individual medal for this fifth stage, a 5-kilometre leg. But Fátima Neves is going to bring the Portuguese team home. 3 or 4 minutes under 2 hours. Now there's Fernando Ribeiro waiting to take over and run the 7.195 kilometres leg, which she ran in the Barcelona Ekiden last year when the Portuguese finished third to that Soviet world best-setting team. Off goes Ribeiro. Fátima Neves did exactly 17 minutes on her 5 kilometres leg, and Ribeiro has round about 7 kilometres left to run. There are the 6 leg runners. The final leg, making up the classic marathon distance, 42.195 kilometres. And Ribeiro has a lead of the order of almost 4 minutes. There's Adam, confirmed as the fastest stage runner there on that 5th stage, just ahead of Rocío Ríos of Spain, 16:31 to 16:38. Portuguese well in the lead over Denmark, but only 4 seconds over Spain. Now there's the 6th Dane, Bettina Roma Andersson, going off, with Rosa Perez of Spain right behind her. Tremendous leg by Rocío Ríos of Spain, brought the Spaniards up to within 4 seconds of the Danes. But Andersson is a rather better 5 and 10k runner than Rosa Perez. In fact, the Spaniards have left their worst runner to last. So being paced by the camera bike, Bettina Roma Andersson should be able to hang on very easily to 2nd place for the Danish team in this first IAAF, International Amateur Athletic Federation, World Ekiden Championships. There's Perez just coming into view in the background. 2 hours, 12 minutes, but they're not finishing. She's still got about 3 kilometers left to run. There's Rosa Perez of Spain, running the 6th and final stage. She's in 3rd place. And although the Romanians are next up with Iulia Negura, the world 15 kilometers champion, the Romanians are so far behind after that disastrous start that Negura has got little if no chance of catching Perez. We're looking at Fernando Ribeiro of the host nation Portugal, and she should be bringing the national team home to victory in this first World Road Relay Championships. Being held in Funchal in Madeira, in the absence of the Kenyans, who only arrived with 5 women. The Portuguese are taking full advantage also of the accidents which happened to first the Romanians. The starting favourites, Margareta Florea Gile, had a bad stomach upset in the last couple of kilometres, came in 2 minutes behind the rest of the field. Then, with the British winning the first stage, Lisa York rather, for the UK winning the first stage, handing over to Marion Sutton. And towards the end of her 10-kilometre stage, Marion Sutton had a seized up Achilles tendon, or hamstring rather, and had to drop out of the race altogether. The British are only in there for the best individual times. That's Fernando Ribeiro of Portugal, well in the lead, with about half a dozen minutes left to run. She's inside the last couple of kilometres. Ribeiro also ran this anchor leg, as it's called, for the Portuguese national team when they finished 3rd last year in Barcelona in the women's Ekiden there, when the Soviet Union set the current world best for this distance of 2 hours 13 minutes and 59 seconds. Now if you imagine that the individual world marathon record time set by Ingrid Christiansen in London some half a dozen years ago or more is 2 hours 21 minutes and 6 seconds. A team of 6 women have got 7 minutes inside that time. But the Portuguese here today are going to be running around about 2 hours and 20, so barely a minute better than Ingrid Christiansen has run by herself. And at that time, the London Marathon wasn't considered to be that good a course for fast running. Too many twists and turns. Now that's Bettina Roma Andersson in 2nd place for Denmark. She's got away from Rosa Perez, as we suspected she would. The Spaniards had put their worst runner on the last leg. Perez has just come around the corner. She started off only 4 seconds, Perez, behind Anderson, but Anderson has already turned that into an advantage of almost 30 seconds. The camera was foreshortening the angle on that corner. There's probably close to 150 metres difference between the Dane and the Spaniard. There's the Dane in the background there. Here she is again, Bettina Roma Andersson. And there is Fernando Ribeiro for Portugal, the host nation. Into, or towards the last kilometre of this 42.195 kilometres race. Relay race, 6-stage relay, is being won very easily indeed by the Portuguese. The gap is already over 4 minutes now, and Ribeiro is running a good time. Ribeiro is certainly going to be the fastest on this stage, so rather fitting that the title is going to be carried off by the nation that ultimately had the fastest times on lap 3 by Felicidade Senna, lap 4 by Conceição Ferreira, and Ribeiro is going to run the fastest final lap. With only 5 stages completed, the British team had 2 of the other fastest times, and Dorte Rasmussen of Denmark had the fastest on the 2nd stage. That's Bettina Roma Andersson of Denmark. She's looking pretty good, but she's not running a terribly fast time. She's going to be way outside 24 minutes for this stage. And in fact, Ribeiro is running a minute faster. She's going to be inside, and in fact well inside, 23.5 minutes for this 7.195 kilometre stage. Now this is going to be an annual event, but I rather think that the complement of teams needs to be at least double next year if this is ever going to be considered a success. There's a long history of road running. Well, both in Japan, evidently, where the concept of the Ekiden began. Also in the British Isles, in spring and autumn, absolutely dozens of road relays. Very much enjoyed for the team spirit they engender. I mean, also in cross-country races, there's always a team race, albeit people are running in the same race altogether. Slightly different here. The 6 runners running a separate leg. And the Portuguese have combined best today, and their best is in fact much, much better than anybody else's. They're going to win this race by around about 4.5 minutes. The Kenyans we saw winning the men's race yesterday by 1.5 minutes over the Portuguese. And the British were third then. The 1, 2, 3 today is going to be Portugal, Denmark and Spain. And we're inside the last minute now of the first Women's World Championship Ekiden. Fernanda Ribeiro of Portugal brings the home nation in first in a time outside 2020 minutes for the full marathon distance. Race has been run around about 19 degrees Celsius, 64% humidity. Ribeiro runs 23 minutes and 22 seconds. It's the fastest 6th stage. Fittingly, helps Portugal win this race by some 4 minutes and 28 seconds. There's the overall time. 2 hours, 20 minutes and 14 seconds for the Portuguese. The Danes are going to maintain second place. The Spaniards are going to maintain third. And Ribeiro has run out of puff. And this first World Championship never really caught its breath at all. Kenyans didn't even field a team. Only 8 teams turned up. There are the 6 leg results. Ribeiro, the fastest. Yulia Nigora, the world 15 kilometers champion, was the second fastest, but she could only bring the Romanians up to 4th. There's the final results. Great Britain and Northern Ireland failed to finish, with Marion Sutton having to drop out on the second leg. Victory for Portugal. So it's goodbye from Pat Butcher from Funchal in Madeira, and thank you for being with us.